there, YouTube. We are back today with a video that is long overdue on our channel. For those of you who don't know, my wife and I took our very first international trip at the end of September for our honeymoon when we went to both Hong Kong and Singapore. It was truly an amazing trip. We had so many great memories, so many great experiences, and it's definitely something that I feel like we both will look on and just never forget. So I've been meaning to make some sort of like commemorative vlog for this trip. It's just life got in the way and I've been so busy that I really haven't had a chance to just sit down and put this together. So I apologize for the delay in getting it out there. But yeah, there's just been a lot going on with like new jobs, new hospitals, new apartment. So everything's just been coming at us all at once. But you know, I finally had some time to put it together. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully it was worth the wait. And this is also the first time I'm doing something like this. So, you know, if you guys have any suggestions, any feedback, please do let me know. I'm definitely game to hearing anything you may have to put out there. And I also think, you know, we've talked about it on the channel as well, that we may try to incorporate videos like this moving forward every now and then. You know, we've got nationals coming up in Orlando at the beginning of January. We've got a few other trips, you know, down the line that we're probably going to be going on as well. So, you know, a little bit of slice of life content for you all. So if you guys enjoy it or want to see more of it, please do let us know. Definitely helps us kind of plan ahead if you guys do want something like this. So again, just thank y'all for tuning in and hopefully you enjoy the vlog. So let's hop right into it. Here we are. We start off our journey, as most of us here in Chicago do, at O'Hare Airport. We ended up flying Cathay Pacific, which was the first time both of us had used this particular airlines. I had a great experience. The food was awesome. I watched a couple movies, played Tales of Arise on my Legion, and after about a 12.5-hour flight, we arrived in Hong Kong. Hong Kong Airport was a pretty smooth experience for us. Granted, we did arrive pretty late. Definitely felt a bit surreal being in Asia again for the first time in over a decade. But it was good to be back, good to be on home soil, so to speak. And after a quick taxi ride through the city proper, we arrived at our hotel, which was a nice and quaint little room. For those of you who don't know, Hong Kong is extremely densely populated. So a lot of the buildings are built tall and narrow. So for example, this is our luxury suite. So you can see here, pretty tight space. Not one you would expect of a luxury suite, but it was tight enough where, you know, the building was like 35 stories tall. And without further ado, let's hop right into day one. We made our point of stay in Sheung Wan District, which is located in the southern tip of the newer territories of Hong Kong, right next to Lantau Island. Sheung Wan is known for being a mashup of the old and new cultures of Hong Kong. You see a lot of fusion of traditional aspects of culture. You see a lot of old buildings, old temples, right next to modern day shopping centers, modern day restaurants, cafes, and whatnot. So it's a really, really cool thing to see that blend of times coming together. The first stop of our trip was a walk to Victoria's Peak, which you can see a little bit of right here. Victoria's Peak is the tallest mountain on Hong Kong Island. It stands approximately 552 meters above sea level, and the footage here is sort of a rest area, sort of mall spot that tourists can like start their journey of the hike at. You have to have a tram that takes you all the way up there. You can kind of get some refreshments before you start on the actual hike itself, which is this part here. Fun fact is that Victoria's Peak was previously a signaling post for cargo ships dating back to like the 19th century. It also was a spot where wealthier residents were able to hide away from like Hong Kong's just scorching summer humidity. And you can see part of that here. There are a lot of like small personal gardens, small sitting areas, gazebos sort of along the peak itself. We were warned of wild pigs, which thankfully we never saw any on our journey. But here is a view of the sort of top of the peak itself. So really, really gorgeous views, a lot of natural just green that stands out in contrast to sort of the modern day buildings that you see on the skyline itself. Just just gorgeous. The camera itself doesn't do it justice at all, but it was just a wonderful time. And as we wrapped up, we took the tram back down, which, funny enough, I guess they were saying was recently redone. And Swedish architecture had a huge play in it, and it transports almost like 4 million people year round, like back and forth, which is wild. And the restaurant over here, Mama Mies, was where we wrapped up our first night. Great Vietnamese, sort of French fusion. Really, really good pho. I had a great meal, and the wife did as well, which I couldn't pick a better spot for our first night in Hong Kong. And then as we start off on day 2, the big part of our agenda was to make it over to Kowloon, where we were planning to visit the zoological and botanical gardens, as well as the Qilin Nunnery. On the left over here, you see Shangwon Market, which is one of the older, more traditional marketplaces in the Shangwon district. And on the trip to the gardens, we got the full experience of the Hong Kong transport system, which was really, really neat. Had a lot of cool shops and little like stalls here and there. And overall, it's just a clean and organized experience. Very, very efficient, very on time, and super easy to navigate, which was huge for us because we hadn't been there before, and it felt like after just a couple rides, like we got the hang of it very, very quickly. So highly recommend their transport system. Here is sort of the entryway to the botanical gardens. Just super peaceful. We got there where there was just a light drizzle of rain, so it really added to the ambiance of just natural scenery, a lot of just peaceful moments and peaceful environmental scenes that you could see here, which was awesome. I had a field day with my camera, which was great. So I'll be posting a few pics on Instagram with that as soon as I get those edited. But this shot here I really liked because I saw it as a really nice contrast, right? Here at the bottom you have like the traditional temple, the botanical gardens, contrasted with the sort of modern day skyline that is modern day Hong Kong, which again is a very common theme in our trip at Hong Kong. There's a lot of fusion of new and old. Here is the Qilin Nunnery, which is one of the oldest Buddhist temples in Hong Kong itself. Built completely out of wood. There isn't a single nail in any of these structures, which is insane given how structurally complex it is. And again, just a really peaceful place to just spend your time in. And speaking of peaceful, we sort of switched gears towards the end of the day and went into one of the more busier shopping districts in the central district of Hong Kong. This particular store was where a lot of my travel funds were spent. I was in heaven. You know, a lot of anime merch, Blue Lock, Digimon, a lot of Gunpla, and a lot of stuff just that I enjoy. So I had a fun time here. And then the other shops were pretty neat too, but this is the one I just will highlight for sure. And then we wrapped up the night with some dim sum, which is a must-do when in Hong Kong. Was just great food overall. So can't complain there. Day 3 was our last sort of day in Shangwon proper. So to start off the morning, we visited Shangwon Market and we found a nice hole-in-the-wall cafe that really was a traditional Hong Kong breakfast style with like toast, different type of breakfast meats, milk tea, and milk coffee, which is a great experience. 10 out of 10 would recommend trying some of these hole-in-wall places if you can find them, because that's where a lot of the authentic cuisine is. And we, again, switched gears, going from more like traditional hole-in-the-wall places and like Hong Kong proper to Disneyland Hong Kong. We stayed at the Hollywood Hotel, which was my first experience at a Disney resort, and I had a blast. We had an opportunity to explore the hotel a little bit, and I had a ton of fun just seeing a lot of the props from like both the Pixar and Marvel universe. I, in particular, am a sucker for a lot of these like storyboard like pieces, a lot of pre-production like clay figurines, storyboard art, and I just loved going through them and seeing each one for what they had to offer. So it was a great time. And the rest of the day we really just spent exploring the rest of the resorts, and eventually going to the train station, which connects you to the rest of Lantau Island, which, fun fact, is a completely man-made island from the bottom up. Was completely man-made, artificial island. Really, really cool to see, and there's a lot of different shopping structures that are available to us. which we did visit briefly, and then we wrapped up the night at the Archivist, which is the bar within our hotel, and the name of the buffet is escaping me right now, but Ink and Plate, that's where it was. It was a great experience there too, with character meet and greets and great food. Before you know it, the big day arrived where we came to Hong Kong Disneyland. So this was my second ever Disney park, and it was a great experience overall. Hong Kong Disneyland is the smallest Disney park, covering just over 320 acres, and is the second Disney theme park in Asia after Tokyo Disneyland. Its design is very heavily influenced by the Hong Kong climate. As I mentioned earlier, Hong Kong is extremely humid and it can get very, very hot very, very fast. We felt the full force of it while we were there, and as you walk along the park, you notice a lot of small paths and a lot of twisted areas where I think it's designed to give guests a bit of a reprieve and shaded spots to take some rest at. There are a lot of benches along the way underneath shrubbery and trees to help kind of shield guests from the high humidity. But it was a great time. It was a great time. Overall, really, really great. It wasn't super crowded, which I think is sort of the theme for Hong Kong Disneyland. It's probably one of the least crowded parks internationally. But by no means does this take away from the quality of the park itself, as the experience and the quality of the service was on par with the other parks that I've been at and that my wife had been at. We started our day off in Frozen Land, which was awesome. I thought the ride was very, very well done. It's one of the newer parts to the park too, and I think they absolutely hit it out of the park. It honestly was the first and probably one of my most favorite parts of the experience overall. I'm not going to go through each and every bit of Disneyland just because it would take an extreme amount of time, but it was just a really fun experience. There's always something magical about being in a Disney park, and you always have that feeling of just pure joy, innocent joy, a lot of great memories from our childhood that Disney is always great at bringing up. I will highlight this particular act, however, with the House of Villains, or the Cruella act. Was really awesome. I think this was one of the first Disney events that was a live action musical performance that at least I had been to. I know there's a lot of 3D performances every now and then, but this was all done with human actors. They were dancing, they had a production of it, and it was just great. I had a fun time at that. And then as the day wrapped up, we got ready for the parade, which we were lucky to catch the Halloween parade, which I believe was one of the first nights they were actually doing it. So we were there at the right time, and it was just a great experience. I could go on about it for hours, but there's just something about going to a Disney park and feeling like a little kid again, channeling your inner 90s Disney child, 2000 Disney child to come out and just have a good time. And you always have that feeling of never wanting to leave, especially when the sun starts to set and you're like, dang it, I've only got a couple hours left. Let me make the most out of it. So I can't wait to go back. We definitely are going to be trying to hit up all the Disney parks in general. So that's part of our bucket list. And then we had to go back quickly because we had an early morning flight to Singapore. So we got maybe a couple hours of sleep, made it to the airport, and in just a little over 4 or 5 hours of flight time, we landed in Singapore. So Singapore is an interesting spot. It's definitely one of the more modern and gentrified places in Asia. It's one of the only 3 surviving city-states in the entire world, with the other 2 being Monaco and the Vatican City. It spans only about 682 square kilometers, with the United States being 15,000 times the size. So as you can imagine, very small area, but also very densely populated. Now, I will say what you're seeing here is an indoor waterfall that is in the heart of the airport itself. So the Changi Airport, or the sort of central travel hub in all of Singapore, is here in Changi. It has this waterfall that you're seeing. It also has a giant mall, or the Jewel Mall, that has over 300 shops and restaurants within it. So as you can imagine, you can really just spend a whole day here in and of itself, just looking at the different shops, eating a bunch of different food, and just really exploring what it has to offer. At the top levels, they also have opportunities for folks to see like Broadway style or Broadway plays, movie theaters. There's hotels here too. There's also, little did I know, the Pokemon Center over in Singapore, which had a lot of neat things there. Got a couple things for the Hoffman brothers. Shout out to you guys and my buddy Josh. And we wrapped up dinner at the airport at Din Tai Fung, which is another shout out to my buddy Shane. This one was for you, my guy. But after wrapping up at the mall and the airport, we made our way over to our hotel. We were able to pass Marina Bay, which is what you're seeing here. This is where the F1 race took place. We were there, fortunately, during F1 weekend, which is a really cool experience. We didn't go to the race itself, but just seeing the festivities very, very close by to us was awesome. And then our first day in Singapore was really just about shopping. We first hit up Queensway Mall, which is like a smaller sports dedicated mall for myself. And then we made our way back to Ion Shopping Center, which is in the heart of like Orchard Road, which is the biggest shopping mall in probably all of Singapore. It had 8 different levels of restaurants, shops, boutiques, and was definitely an experience for sure. Day 2 of our trip was dedicated to our dear friends, Denise and Jeff, who were getting married, and was just an awesome night and a beautiful experience. We can't thank you guys enough for having us there for your special day, and we love you both. Congrats again. Day 3 began with a very quick bite to eat with our dear friends Haley and Jake, and afterwards we made our way over to Chinatown. Similar to Hong Kong, the transport experience in Singapore was absolutely amazing. Very, very easy to pick up, and everything is super accessible. Chinatown was a very nice breath of fresh air in the sense that there was a lot more traditional aspects that you see displayed as opposed to a lot of the modern day glitz and glam that you typically think of when you think of Singapore. This is the first of many hawker stalls that we visited along the way. For those of you who don't know, hawker stalls are essentially like small like mom and pop food stalls that, you know, are kind of in the center food market that have a ton of great authentic food, but for very, very cheap prices. Here is a mural that there were a ton of these sprinkled along Singapore's Chinatown, where they talked a lot about like different cultural aspects over the years, which is really cool to see. This was the entryway to the Wizard's Brew, which is by far my favorite bar that I have visited in any sort of trip that I've ever been on. The ambiance was amazing, and the food and the drinks were all like personally curated, which was just awesome. And I could totally see myself just coming here for like a session of D&D and cards. Like, it was just a great, great place to be at. But then we just rounded out the rest of the day exploring the rest of Chinatown, seeing what it had to offer. And then we wrapped up at dinner with one of the more popular hawker stalls in the area. I think this was Maxwell Street. Dua Lipa, interestingly enough, was just here just a couple weeks ago when she was in Singapore for her tour. And the food was just awesome. By far the best plate of dumplings I've ever had in my life. Day 4, which is one of the like last major touristy days for us, started off in Chinatown once again, just so we could hit up some of the temples and some of the attractions that were closed or we just didn't have a chance to go to. So it was a really good time. Again, just a lot of good food, a lot of great experiences. This was another hawker stall that we were at that had a ton of great vegetarian options, which is great for the wife. And then after the food and some of the temples that we saw, we made our way over to Marina Bay, which is one of the biggest tourist spots in Singapore. Here is a view from Sky Park, which is essentially like, if you can imagine, like for those of you in Chicago, like Willis Tower, where you can go all the way to the top and just see the city line and the skyline. It's very similar to what you can do here. You go to like the 52nd floor and you can see from like a balcony's edge the entire island, which was just amazing and beautiful. This particular shot is of the gardens, which we will be going to in just a quick second. More footage there to follow, but just seeing the sights of the city was awesome. Singapore is an amazing place. It is definitely a touristy area, but there is a lot of culture, a lot of different things that you can experience there. Food, shopping, history, art, like science even. There's so much there to explore, and I highly recommend it for anybody considering a trip to Asia to include Singapore in your itinerary, because it is definitely a great place to be. I definitely want to go back again. Here you're seeing the skyline, and that sort of domed building is one of the science museums. The building coming up here is a Louis Vuitton museum, which is a huge fashion sort of like area here. This is the bottom of Sky Park, which we were just at. So if you can imagine, we were up there looking down on the city. So great views. And this is sort of the entry walkway into the gardens itself. Pretty standard botanical gardens, but honestly was, again, a great experience. A lot of great scenes. The exhibits that they set up were just state of the art, really gorgeous, just arrangements, and it really just took your breath away, you know. We tried to time it so that we could go there at like the evening hours, so the sun would set just a little bit for a couple reasons. One being the humidity, and two also because we felt like the sun would set just nicely where a lot of these like floral arrangements, greenery arrangements would pop out. And there's also a light show at the end of the day that you'll see a little bit of footage of that is super cool. This first exhibit that we were at was called, I believe it's Flower Dome, and it's essentially just an entire like walkthrough of different floral arrangements. As you can see, the colors popped beautifully, and each sort of section of the dome had its own particular theme. And it was just really beautiful. For those of you who love messing around with your camera, taking in floral shots, or just, you know, absorbing everything that you can see and just having a good visual experience, this is definitely something I recommend going to. Admission to the botanical gardens comes in like different packages, so you do have to pay, but it's like very minimal. I think for all of what we did, including the like balcony view, the floral stuff, and the night show, I think it costs per person like 60 to 70 US dollars, which honestly for a whole day's experience is not that bad, you know, and it was a great time. I definitely would do it again if I had the chance. Here is sort of the second segment of sort of the attractions that they set up in Cloud Forest. So here, very similar to what we saw in the airport, was a huge indoor waterfall, and essentially the exhibit is set up where you just kind of work your way up different stories and different floors, and you just got to see a vast amount of floral and greenery arrangements. The scenes were breathtaking. As you got higher up, not only could you see down below, but you could also see into the city itself as well and into the rest of the gardens, which again was amazing. Along the way up, there are a few interactive like exhibits, interactive displays, which also was really cool. Singapore in general has been trying to incorporate some of this into a lot of their touristy attractions. The malls had a few. I think they're opening a new Harry Potter World experience as well very shortly. And we'll get to this in a quick second, but there was also a Monet interactive exhibit, which was really cool because you got to see a lot of the paintings come to life. Here you're seeing a lot of the like greenery, the flowers, and sort of the exhibit there come to life in nature. But here is where you start to see some of the Monet stuff. Really cool. You got to see it all blown up, and the colors really popped in how they set it all up. And it was like a walking interactive gallery, which one was a nice reprieve from the outside humidity and gave you a place to sit, but two was just also really gorgeous. This was the main part of the exhibit. There were also like a few subdivisions here and there that kind of broke down other things. And here is just an example. It's not the greatest shot, but it's one of the segments of the light show that we had at the end of the day. So the towers that are at the center of the botanical gardens have a light show at the end of the day, which is why a lot of the tourists tend to time their visits towards dinner time, because you can kind of see everything and claim a spot right for the light show. And it's a really cool thing. It's about a 10-minute show where you can kind of see different things, different lights, and it's kind of curated along with some music. So really, really great experience. The rest of the trip, there's one more day, but I didn't take a lot of footage because one, I wanted to just have a day to myself where I didn't focus on like vlogging and camera work. I just wanted to kind of enjoy the last day of being in Asia with my wife, and also just kind of soak in whatever time left was there. We really didn't do much either. We just kind of did some shopping. We explored a couple more restaurants too, and just kind of called it a day. So not a whole lot of new footage, but yeah, I mean, as you can see here, right, like kind of a cool light experience at the end of the day for the gardens. And yeah, I think that about wraps it up for the footage that I have for you guys. And that pretty much wraps up the vlog, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I tried to hit as many of the key points as possible without really dragging the video on for, you know, honestly, it could go on for hours with all the things that we did, all the sights, the experiences, the food, all of it. If I were to put all of it in there, this video would be ages long, and I didn't want to put you through that. But like I said, it's the first time I'm doing something like this, so please do let me know if there's any feedback, any suggestions, anything that maybe I could improve upon. So, you know, I'm definitely game to hearing about it, because like I said, you know, we will try to incorporate some of this moving forward with any future trips that we have planned, whether it's channel related or just sort of for funsies, you know. So be on the lookout for it. A couple shout outs, mainly for, you know, my beautiful wife. You know, a lot of this isn't possible without you and your understanding, and I hope this video was something that you can look on and enjoy. For everybody else watching, you know, thank you all for tuning in as always. The support truly does mean a whole lot to us, and we also wouldn't be here without you. So thank you once again, and as I like to say, we'll catch ya on that flippy flip. Bye-bye.